goes. It almost didn't work the first try, I'm gonna tell you now. I pressed it and it took like 3 seconds after. All right. Looks like we're good, bro. Whenever.
Hello, and welcome back to the Second and Two podcast. I'm your host, TB. I've got my co-host, producer extraordinaire, hat connoisseur, all the things. Jodye, what's up, Joe?
Much, man. Just it's been a minute. I'll probably be cheesing the whole time through just because it's been a couple months since we've been here. But good to be back. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
dude. I mean, so what's been going on the last couple months? The last time we did a pod was like late March when we were getting ready for the draft, like early April. So it's been about 2 months since the last time we podded. What's been rolling on?
Ooh, let's see. For one, WNBA started. There you go. That's on the list. We got we had my sister's-in-law's graduation from law school, so we did that like a couple weeks ago.
Congrats. That's big.
What else is new? There was one other thing that probably more important than the WNBA starting, but I can't remember. What about you?
What hasn't happened, bro? Jill and I
How
get
was
married
I
next
was gonna
month.
yeah. That I have already started packing. You see that box right there? Where this hat came from? That's going into
Jody's
the travel pack.
There we go.
What's it called? What was I gonna say before that though? Oh, how was the track meet for the
Whole thing,
kids?
anything like that. But we did really well. I think we ended up like 11th or something like that out of 16, so not bad.
There you go.
And it was a great experience. It was really cool. Regular track, we had a kid get all the way to regionals in long jump,
Oh, dang.
and also another kid in the 3200. Neither one of them advanced beyond that, but they both got there, which was awesome. We had our athletic banquet, graduation, all the good stuff. But yeah, I mean, beyond that, personally, yep, Jill and I are getting married next week or next month, not next week.
Wow, that'd be crazy. I'd be like,
Next
I ain't making it, bro.
next month. I just got a new car.
Oh yeah, the
Pretty
taco.
pretty juiced about that. I got a 2024 Toyota Tacoma. So all black, very
Mm-hmm.
nice. Minimal miles on it, like it's basically brand new. So
Oh, nice.
it's
That's
what I
good.
was looking for. Pretty juiced about it. Been finding reasons to go drive the last couple days since I got it. So
You take it off-roading? I know you got the
a little bit.
TRD.
Little bit. Had some fun. Got a little dirt on it. It was good. Had to really clean out the garage to make sure Jill and I could both fit our cars in there still. So that was a time. Had to do some of that.
I feel
Try,
like there wasn't much in there though. Like everything was against the walls, at least when I was there.
Yes, but needed to really. There's more than you actually think once you start rolling on it. I'm telling you, it took me about an hour to really get it right. So, and then trying to get my grass to grow. It's dead right now. It's not growing. So I planted some. Literally this morning, I planted some Scott's Bermuda grass seed on there in hopes that I'm to get this thing to grow. So, my early to mid 20s, am I currently trying to get grass to grow in the front yard? hard, like you've really reached like
Yeah.
adulthood baseball, that kind of stuff, with the boys and the girls. Trying to get ourselves ready for the next season. But yeah, so and then tomorrow we actually have we do a little bit of summer 7-on-7 stuff.
Oh,
So
dang.
tomorrow we've got that. So that'll be fun. Kind of see the new group. You graduate a lot of kids. You got kind of a new crop coming in, and so you kind of 7-on-7 in the summer is the first time you really get to like look at it as far as competition mode. So excited for that too.
This might be a dumb question, but you guys just have varsity, right? There's no JV.
We have, it just depends on how many kids we have come out, right? Last year we played some JV games. We weren't able to carry a full JV schedule.
Oh,
So it's like you got one team,
yeah.
but then you're trying to get JV games when you have enough players and you can do it. Yes. And then we have the junior high too, that a little bit unique, with
That's true.
the junior high football team. So we always have two teams. You have the high school and you have the junior high, and then in the high school, if you can, have enough to get the JV games, you try and do that too. But so
back to it. It was short lived, but you're back.
Yeah. So I think we want to get into a few different things today. We want to get into the draft, and we want to get into some teams that we think could be risers or fallers in the 2026 season. So we're going to go a little draft review. First thing we were going to look at, Joe, is our sort of top 12 guys, right? And see where did they end up going, who got good value based on what we thought were the top 12. So starting with a guy that we both really liked. I had him ranked first overall. I think you had him like third, maybe.
I had him at fourth. I was trying to be not glazing, as the kids would say.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's really hard. Really hard to watch this guy's.
I think he was my favorite.
Yeah, okay. It's really hard to watch this guy's tape and not glaze. Jeremiyah Love, he went third overall to the Cardinals. I think, there's obviously the debate, right? It seems less so now because running backs are more in, right? With the last couple Super Bowl champions really having really good running backs, helping them win titles. But there's still a little bit of that, like, even if you're a Saquon Barkley truther, did it really work out for the Giants drafting him? Because the team he really helped was actually the team he went to second, in free agency. So, taking a running back top 5 is still kind of iffy, but the Cardinals didn't care. They just said, we're going to take the best player that we see. And, the big thing is obviously that you're paying him a premium price early on. So that's the thing. He's already like a top 5 paid running back being drafted third overall. That's the deal that everyone kind of talks about with value and whatnot. But if you're going to pay him, you'd probably rather pay him during his prime years, and his prime years are going to be on that first contract. So
that's true.
Love third overall to the Cardinals. Caleb Downs, who I had second, I believe you had third, maybe fifth.
I don't know. Was he
somewhere in that top 5?
Was he
the safety from Ohio State?
Safety. Yeah, I'm gonna say he probably wasn't that high, but I'm gonna go double check for
fun. He would 11th overall to the Cowboys. I thought maybe one of the bigger steals in terms of value was the Cowboys getting him at 11. He is, I think, going to be one of the better safeties in the league, like right away. And they got him 11th overall. Really good football player. Someone who will help evolve their defense because of all the different things he can do. We've talked about, like, I think my comp went for him was a Tyrann Mathieu and Kyle Hamilton mashup. So obviously a really smart and versatile football player. Joe, you got a look on your face. Where'd you have him?
Got him at 10. Caleb Downs, yeah.
So you were in alignment then with the draft selection, essentially. You had him at 10 and he was drafted at 11. So the next one for me was Arvell Reese. He went 5th overall to the Giants. A guy that a lot of people were split on, right? It just kind of depends on where's he going to play. the interesting thing with him going to the Giants is you now look across that front and you're like, okay, so you have Kayvon Thibodeau, who you invested in, a top draft pick in a few years ago. You have Brian Burns, who you traded for and paid. You have Abdul Carter, who you drafted pretty high last year. And now you have Arvell, and a lot of people have talked over the last month is, what's the plan for Arvell Reese? Is he going to be a pass rusher? Because if so, you figure he, as a rookie, he's probably kind of fourth in that group of 4 pass rushers. Yeah. So now it's like, well, they're going to start him by playing him at off-ball linebacker and get the best players on the field, et cetera, et cetera. You keep going, right? So we'll see what they do with him. All right, so we're back. Sorry, a little bit of technical difficulties here, but we continue through the draft. Next up, we have Makai Lemon, a guy who you had ranked first overall on your board. You loved Makai Lemon.
My guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I being that apparently tomorrow, June 1st, they're shipping out that guy to Patriots land. I think this is a great pickup for them. But that's if the that Patriots happens. They have both even crazier that they'll have 2 good receivers out there. They just need their guy to throw them the ball at this point.
Still a possibility that guy could end up. Just saying. Rumors.
Who would they give up?
A pick.
That's it. They wouldn't trade no one. It would just be a pick.
Yeah, I mean that's probably what the Patriots are going to. That's probably what the Patriots are going to give up too if they're trying to get him. It's about how high of a pick, basically. That's I mean, but you know who else loved Makai Lemon? The Pittsburgh Steelers, because they called him and said they were taking him, and then the Eagles jumped in front of him and took him instead.
You thought.
But so he goes 20th overall to the Eagles. Another pick where I thought, man, great value. He slipped a little bit. I know he's kind of smaller, maybe limited to true slot role, and so maybe some teams just felt like not enough versatility there. But remember, he brings you kick return, punt return value as well. I think he's going to be great in that Eagles offense, honestly. I think it's going to end up being a really, really good pick, which I hate.
How he does it again.
How he does it again, dude. How does he keep getting away with this? Next up, Mansoor Delane, top corner in the draft for both of us. Love him.
Crazy.
A lot to like. A lot to like with Vatek and LSU film. And what was the comp for him, Jodye? It was Trent McDuffie. And guess what? They just traded Trent McDuffie and then said, hey, we're just going to get the 6th pick and draft Trent McDuffie again, the younger version, cheaper version. So great move for them. I really think he's going to be perfect for what the Chiefs ask him to do, because legitimately I think he's like a Trent McDuffie clone. It's honestly, it's a great move for them. I think as long as he's healthy, I think that works out really well.
I agree.
Then we had Dillon Thienemen, a guy that we both liked probably more than consensus. Certainly I liked him more than consensus. He went 20th overall to the Bears, the lowest drafted guy of our top 12. Not super surprising. There was a thought that he might end up in the 2nd round, and so I was actually happy for him. He was drafted in the 1st round, goes to a place in Chicago where he's going to get to play right away. They lost a lot of safety and just DB help in general in free agency, and so I think he's going to get a great shot to just play right now and contribute to a team that, in theory, should be pretty good again. We had Sonny Styles. I think you liked him better than I did, if I remember right.
Let's double check. I had him. No, there's no way. We were very consensus with this. 11 and 12. You had 11. I had 12.
So
I'm gonna be honest. I think I was hating on all the defensive dudes, but that's just
you were, bro. Styles, to me, the big thing is just that he's more of an off-ball linebacker, maybe not as valuable. However, one of the teams I really did like for him was the Commanders. He goes there. It's like a perfect fit, I think, right away. 7th overall, a little high in my opinion, but by the same token, like I said, it was kind of a perfect match. It's the best place for him to go to be productive and effective right away. And so I think it's going to be a match made in heaven with Dan Quinn. So I really actually like that. And then last but not least, Ahkeem Mesidor, another pass rusher, a little bit older, right? Maybe a little bit beefier than like your traditional speed rusher. He's a little more of a power rusher. But man, great spot for him to go. Again, another good match. I think going to the Chargers and what they're going to do, I think that's going to be great for him. 22nd overall there. So we had some teams get some good value with some of these guys, especially the guys who were drafted in the 20s. Lemon, Thienemen, and Mesidor. You know, we had these guys as top 12 players in this draft, and their teams got them in the 20s. That's great value. And like I said, I think maybe my favorite pick of all these guys was Caleb Downs going to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think mine would have been the Mansoor Delane to the Chiefs. I think that one's a pretty crazy pick.
Another
Then,
really good one.
Yeah.
Let's go biggest surprises of the draft. Now, I would say compared to other drafts we've had, I actually thought this draft went pretty close to chalk, truthfully. We've had much more shocking sort of picks in the past. And so there weren't a ton of them. There was one that stands out. I kind of gave us 5 to talk about that I felt like sort of in order of shock value, essentially.
Okay.
Number 1, I don't think it's a secret, right? It has to do with the team you and I both support, the team I'm wearing today. Jodye, what happened at 13 with the Rams?
They picked up Simpson from Alabama, and everyone was watching that boy McVay look kind of salty in the video.
Mm-hmm. There, the media fallout from like, because it's not just like the pick. It was like what happened for like a week after the pick, right? Even now, I mean, he was just on Bussing with the Boys last week and still talking about like the pick,
how he would
right?
take back that moment to have it look different.
So basically, the story goes the Rams, specifically McVay, meets with Simpson like multiple times, sort of quote unquote in secret. They don't want anyone to know that, you know, he's really interested and the Rams are really interested in Simpson. They don't want anyone to kind of try and jump them at 13. They don't want to have to trade up. They want to be able to stick at 13 and pick their guy, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so they don't want to tell anyone. They don't want to give anyone, you know, tip the hand. So Simpson keeps it completely secret. The Rams keep it completely secret. There is another connection with the GM, Les Snead, who knows Simpson's dad, right? They go back. And they actually went to Les Snead before the draft and in terms of getting advice of whether he should declare or he could have gone back to Alabama for one more year. He declares based on Les Snead's advice. And now we might guess that there might have been a conversation there like, hey, man, we might really like you and take you at 13. So who knows what that discussion was, right? But multiple connections. The Rams take him at 13. They got the press conference after. Everyone knows that McVay is like Mr. Ultra positive no matter what the situation is, right? Generally, that guy is super positive.
High energy.
They see him in the presser. Snead is juiced, but McVay is very grounded and sort of guarded would be 2 ways to describe it. Another way that if you want to go more extreme, he looked pissed off, right? So everyone's kind of like, oh, they're not on the same page. Snead wanted this guy, but McVay didn't, XYZ, right? There's, of course, the Stafford factor. He just won MVP. So now everyone's like, oh, my gosh, you have the MVP on your team and you draft a player to replace him rather than giving him another weapon or an offensive lineman or another defensive guy, right?
Yeah.
And then the Rams, you know, over the next week play kind of like the media game. Simpson says he never met with the Rams because he thinks he's still supposed to keep those meetings secret. The Rams are like, no, you can tell everyone. So then he goes back and he's like, no, actually, I met with McVay like multiple times for hours on end. You know, we had these great meetings. I was supposed to kind of keep it a secret. I didn't realize I could tell people now. The Rams are like, yeah, it's awesome, dude. We met with him. We loved him, blah, blah, blah. McVay talks about, I wasn't really mad at that. I was trying to protect Matthew Stafford, but there was something else that happened that I was upset about that then filtered into the press conference, yada, 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 right? And you get all the damage control, all the media spectacle around the whole thing, right? And at the end of the day, what I think it comes down to is if you're the Rams, you had 2 first-round picks this year. The pick that was not yours, the 13th overall pick from the Falcons, was like gold. because in an ideal world, you're never picking in the top 15 again. I mean, and basically the
after
McVay
making it to the NFC Championship.
in the McVay-Snead era, they've only, been this is the first time they've been positioned with a pick like this. Even the year I think that McVay almost retired and they went like 5-12. I'm fairly certain they had traded their first round pick that year, so they didn't even get the value of that pick. Where they probably
so.
would have had the highest pick of the McVay-Snead era. So this is the highest draft pick that these guys have had. Number one. Number two, their own pick at 29. They traded for Trent McDuffie. So in their mind, we addressed our greatest weakness. We got an all-pro corner with the 29th pick. So the 13th pick is kind of like we can play around, we can do some different things. It's not a need basically at this point.
Yeah.
We feel like defensively, we also in free agency we pick up Jalen Watson. So now we've got two stud corners. We love our safeties. We like our linebackers. We love our front on defense. It's a young defense that continues to grow. We get to bring back Shula as our DC for another year. Hey, on offense, we've got the MVP. We had the number one scoring offense. We basically returned the entire crew from last year's number one scoring offense. McVay continues to evolve. We got all these tight ends. We love our top two receivers. We love our top two running backs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So when you put all that together, you're like, okay, well, what was their biggest hole? You might argue like maybe a third receiver, maybe O-line depth, maybe a punt returner, kick returner. So maybe like Makai Lemon kind of fills the third receiver, punt returner, kick returner role. Maybe you draft a tackle where you're saying, we can fill in some depth. Havenstein retired, even though we like Warren McClendon, right? But any of those roles I just said, are any of those guys immediate contributors or are they depth pieces?
Yeah, that's true.
No matter what they were taking at 13, they were taking a depth. They were taking a depth piece. Even if you drafted, say, Ruben Bain as a pass rusher, is he starting tomorrow over Byron Young and Jared Verse? Probably not. He's a depth piece, right? So the more you talk about it, the more you realize at 13, no matter who they took, that guy wasn't going to be an immediate contributor. Maybe more of an immediate contributor than, say, a backup quarterback, right? Because those other guys probably at least get on the field this year.
Yeah.
And the hope, if things go well, is Ty Simpson doesn't sniff the field this year, right?
Yeah.
But
you
could argue that just as big of a missing piece as anything else is the backup quarterback role right now, because Jimmy Garoppolo is not there and sounds like he's going to retire. Yeah, I don't know if it's official yet. I can't remember if he officially retired, but that was kind of like he was mulling retirement. So you don't have that veteran backup quarterback. The next guy is Stetson Bennett, who's been there for a while and but has never really gotten to play.
Yeah.
And you also have Matthew Stafford, who, let's not forget, before the start of last season, had like back surgery and was like maybe not going to play.
Yeah.
And then, of course, had an MVP season, and the rest is history, except right. But so ultimately, if you think about all of that, the rationale is sound. Hey, let's just take a guy who, now we have a backup quarterback we can be excited about, where if something, God forbid, does happen to Stafford, we have another guy we can put in the game where it's not like the season is over, right? I mean, there's at least some talent and pedigree there that we feel good enough that Sean McVay wanted this guy. B, you also had to prepare for the future of when Stafford eventually does retire because he's molded over the last couple off seasons. And you weren't going to get a pick this high to get a guy like this probably again, unless something disastrous happens, right? So the idea of like everyone in uproar, they didn't take an immediate helpful piece. They weren't going to no matter what because that roster is really good, right? And even if you took a Makai Lemon, there isn't so much 12 and 13 personnel right now that they don't play with three receivers on the field. So that guy's not playing a lot, right? And there's some other receivers on the roster like Kanate Mumfield and Jordan Whittington that they've developed from later rounds that have been playing okay. And I mean, you look at like last year, they signed Tutu Atwell to a $10 million deal to come back and be the third receiver. That guy never played.
Yeah.
So the reality is, even if it was a Makai Lemon, it's a guy who's probably not giving you a ton this year and is a developmental piece for down the road. And so why not solidify the most important position in the game? I think it was a great move.
Let him learn for a year too.
Under Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. Who else is going to get that kind of opportunity? And you start thinking about like, again, is it a guarantee that just because you sit means you're going to be great? No, that's not a guarantee, right? But some of the guys who have sat, who've had that luxury, have turned out to be really good, right? You think about Aaron Rodgers,
Packers.
you think about
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, you think about Jordan Love, right? Those guys who have got to sit for a year or at least maybe more and turned out to be freaking awesome by the time they're ready to play because they had actually been in the NFL a little bit and seen some things. And they didn't get to make the mistakes themselves necessarily in games, but they got to see it and they avoided a lot of those mistakes in their first few starts, right? So I do think it's a great situation for Ty Simpson. It's a great situation for the Rams. If he turns out to be, their next starting quarterback for whatever 10 years, then no one's going to look back and say like, "Oh my gosh, they drafted him too high at 13," or "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they didn't draft Makai Lemon or Ruben Bain." Like people will be like, "Oh my gosh, they got their franchise quarterback. What a
Yeah.
genius move," right? So ultimately, I think it was the right play. I think it's the right gamble. I think it was smart team building all the way around. So I don't have any issues, especially as a Rams fan, of course. I don't have any issues with the pick. I know some people did, but I don't.
Yeah, I will say I was on the other camp where I would rather see a piece come in, but it's still a smart decision. I'm not saying it's a terrible choice, but I would have preferred someone else, in my opinion.
Who would you have drafted
I would have
instead?
took Makai Lemon for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But
And the one thing you
as
could
a
argue where he would have been a huge contributor likely is the return game. And that was another thing, the fumbled punt, the muff punt against Seattle was a big one in the NFC Championship. And so you would have liked to have seen maybe they bring someone in, Lemon who would have been more sure-handed in that kind of situation. But that there is an argument there. I'm not saying there's none, but I don't know that he would have played enough on offense that you would have
yeah,
been,
that's a fair choice too.
you know,
Didn't they get a tight end too later in the draft?
Max Clare in the second round, another tight end, which tells you what their philosophy is probably going to continue
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
when they already have all those tight ends that they
yeah,
have that they like. So he joins like Ferguson and Higbee and Parkinson and Davis Allen. I mean, they got a number of them, so I assume they're going to be in
yeah,
a lot more of that 12 and 13 next year.
yeah. Makes sense.
Um, the next kind of surprise move. I don't know if you saw this, Jodye, but there's an offensive
I've never
tackle
even
from
seen this
Alabama
name.
by the name of Kadyn Proctor. This was the dude. I'm sure you saw the videos of him like catching passes, like Alabama like threw him some passes and some stuff and let him like run the ball in some games this year, like on some like goal line situations and like some trick play stuff. He
Yeah.
is extremely athletic, like
Let's see.
incredible frame, incredible athlete for an offensive tackle. Exactly what you want, prototypical. However, his former head coach, Nick Saban, went on, I think it was McAfee, and was talking about him like the week before the draft. Basically said he wasn't a self-starter, not supremely
Oh,
motivated,
that's tough.
and it was kind of like, oof. Nick Saban has no reason to lie in this situation, probably telling the truth. And man, I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to draft a guy who I would not call a self-starter as my left tackle and protector of the franchise.
Yeah, that's
And
tough.
the Dolphins said, we don't care. And they took him at 12, which I don't know.
A bad place to be if you're not that motivated too.
Miami, South
There's a
Beach.
lot of distractions.
So I don't know. It felt high. It felt high in general before, because there were already people were already watching things and saying on tape there's stuff with Kadyn Proctor. He wasn't in our top 12 for a reason, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't even, I think he was my third or fourth ranked tackle prospect. Now, just because of the frame and that, like you have to, that's a thing you can't coach. And so if you have that, there
Mhm.
has to be someone's going to have to take a chance on him.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I don't know if you wanted it to be the Dolphins at as high as 12. I think if it was more like
That's
late
fine.
20s, mid 30s, like you'd be like, okay, we're willing to take this chance. 12 felt really high, especially then when you throw in the saving comments and it's like, oh, this guy could be a bust. I don't know. So
I will say too, I feel
um,
like the Dolphins have plenty of other holes too that they could have got at 12. Like the receiving core kind of. I think Waddle left, right, and then Tyreek Hill's not even coming back, so it's like they're down receivers. And I'm pretty sure, obviously, they filled the O-line. I was going to say their O-line's pretty bad, but like there's some other stuff too they could have addressed or even gotten someone else at this spot.
Yes, 100%. So that was a shock. Third most shocking thing in the draft to me. So, of course, there's always pick 33 is always kind of fun, right? Because you now
First
know
of the second round.
you now know, like, night one's over, 32 picks have happened. Everyone's got like there's always like 5 or 6 guys that everyone's like, oh my gosh, I thought he was going to be a first round pick and he fell out. Wow, who's this team at 33 going to take, right? Because it's kind of like that extended, like, and you have a full day to mock and project and talk and figure out what is this team going to do. And of course, considering the Brandon Ayuk situation, considering Deebo Samuel left a year ago, considering Juwan Jennings was out there in free agency still and wasn't coming back to San Francisco, and basically all they had was Ricky Pearsall coming back. It was like, okay, San Francisco's going to take a receiver. They really need one bad. They need to get younger and more dynamic at receiver to help Brock Purdy. George Kittle's got the Achilles. He's not going to be back right away. You can't ride McCaffrey forever, knowing that he had the Achilles the year before, and all of that, right? The Achilles tendonitis and all that. So you're like, okay, the Niners, it just makes sense. They got to take a weapon, probably a receiver, right? And people were talking about all the different receivers that were available. Omar Cooper Jr. Or I'm sorry, not Omar Cooper Jr. I'm thinking of the other Indiana receiver, Elijah Sarad, or you had Denzel Boston, or just a million different receivers. One name that didn't come up a whole lot in that conversation for a full day?
This one I'm staring at on my screen.
Dejon Stribling, the Ole Miss receiver. That was not one that a lot of people were talking about as like, oh, this could be. I mean, I think there were 5 or 6 other receivers people were kind of thinking about before even Dejon Stribling. This was one that, it also, the other thing about this pick is it brought up the big topic of like the consensus board this year, right? And the Niners, according to, media people, I don't know, obviously they run the numbers, so I'm just kind of trusting them on this. But the Niners are a team apparently under their GM, this regime of Lynch and Shanahan. They've been one known to just take picks way away from consensus. So consensus meaning, hey, this guy should be picked by most professional people, media people who are ranking prospects. This is a guy that was a projected 3rd round pick. Well, they're taking him at pick 33, right? And so they're going way ahead of consensus. And so this is where that conversation started. They started they asked Lynch about it, and he was like, there's no consensus board. We have our board, right? That's it. We rank our guys independent of anybody else, how they fit in our system, which that makes sense. As a team, you have to do that. Just because a guy is a top 5 talent, if he doesn't fit your scheme or your system or from a personality standpoint, your team, you're not probably taking him, right? You might take a guy that is lower in talent, but is going to fit your team. That's going to happen, right? But with the Niners, it appears that they take guys way ahead of consensus often. And so this was a thing, that they're talking to him about. And Lynch doesn't exactly have like a perfect track record with some of these picks, right? Trey Lance, some of those kind of
name. I was going to bring him up. I was going to say Trey McBride, but I know that's wrong. That's the tight end.
Trey Lance or Solomon Thomas, or like some of these guys that they've drafted that maybe not Trey Lance you'd call a bust at this point, but like some of these other guys, maybe not busts, but guys who just didn't work out really with the Niners, right? And so when you're taking these ahead of consensus picks and guys aren't working out, you're going to receive criticism. It's going to happen, right? Versus you're probably less likely to get that criticism if you're taking a guy where consensus has him going. So that was a big topic that got started with this pick specifically because it was not a pick anyone was expecting. It seemed very high. There were other prospects on the board that people liked a lot more. For one, like everyone's raving about Denzel Boston right now in Cleveland. He went a few picks later. They drafted Keishi Concepcion in the 1st round and then Boston in the 2nd round early. And so people are going on and on about some of that stuff. The fourth most surprising to me was Carson Beck to the Cardinals at 65. And we talked about this when we ranked the quarterback prospects, right? It was like, hey,
Yeah.
Mendoza above everyone else. Then kind of like Simpson above everyone else. And those might be the only 2 first-round guys. But it wasn't just that those were the only 2 first-round guys. Dude, those guys both got taken in the top 13 picks, and we didn't see another quarterback selected until 65. Now, that has kind of been a trend in recent years. It's like if you like a guy, you take him in the first round because you get that 5th-year option, right? But also, if you don't really like a guy in that first round, teams aren't really taking that guy in the second round anymore. A lot of times that guy falls to round 3, round 4, which is exactly what happened here. So that part maybe not necessarily surprising, but the fact that it was Carson Beck as the 3rd quarterback taken overall, I really was surprised by. I know he had a good year at Miami, good CFP run. I know all that stuff. There's a lot of limitations that we saw when we talked about on the tape that I was surprised he was the 3rd guy.
I had him 3rd on that list. You had him at 6.
I did.
So on my list, it played out how I thought.
Because to me, right, if you're going to take a guy in the 3rd round at quarterback, you're saying this guy's a developmental guy. We're not taking him to be like the face of our franchise. Like now, it could work out that way. It happens. We see it all the time. 3rd, 4th, 5th round guys who are taken that end up being like the guy, right? I mean, you're talking about your Dak Prescotts and things like that. Russell Wilson, obviously Brady's the highlight. He's 6th round. That almost never happens. You're talking like 3rd, 4th, 5th round though. It's a lot more. It's a lot more often. And yeah, Purdy and Brady are kind of like the rare exceptions in round 6 and 7. But rounds 3 through 5, you still see plenty of guys get taken that end up being, face of the franchise type guys. And so when you do that, though, to me, you can take a little bit more risk in terms of like take the toolsy guy, right, that you feel like you can develop. Carson Beck to me is not the toolsy guy. Of all the guys in this draft, to me that were like the most toolsy, it probably would have been Drew Aller, who went a few picks after Beck in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. Like I would have been more like, okay, that makes sense if the Cardinals had taken Drew Aller. Even Garrett Nussmeier was a guy I liked more. And he fell way. I don't know what happened or why he fell way to round 6 with the Chiefs.
Was that the LSU guy?
Yes, which to me that one was shocking as well. That kind of goes with the quarterback sort of order post Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza in general was very, very weird. Klubnik went to the Jets, I think, in round 4.
That was my next question.
So there was a lot there. The Eagles took the North Dakota State kid. That we kind of liked. That was just off our board. But so, yeah, just interesting to see that Carson Beck was the 3rd guy taken. I thought that was a shock. And then last but not least, Jermod McCoy fell all the way to 101 to the Raiders. And I honestly thought he was like the 2nd, maybe 3rd best corner in this draft. Like it was clearly Mansoor Delane. And then it was like, do you like Chris Johnson or do you like Jermod McCoy? And I know there's some injury history there and things like that. But I really thought from a talent perspective, he was 2nd or 3rd best in the draft. And there were a lot more corners taken before him. So I guess the injury maybe is greater than what we know. Teams have more access to medicals and things like that than we do. So there clearly has to be more of a story there. But I was surprised that he went that late. I thought he would be more like, I don't know, 2nd or 3rd round pick. I mean, to go all the way to 101 was quite shocking to me. Is there anything else that I missed, Joe, that you felt like was wild to you in this draft?
I don't think so. I didn't honestly pay much attention outside that first day, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was
that's
kind of how it normally is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't pay much attention to college in general. I'm a shieldy as the people are now trying to call it, but I will say the dude's name you're looking for from North Dakota State was Cole Payton.
Yes. Cole
and
Payton
I know,
to Philly.
What was his
could
name?
end up sneaky being. That's like one of those ones. Could sneaky see him figuring it out and end up being like
Todd McShay. That's the cooler dude. Mel Kiper's the older guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Todd McShay was high on Cole Payton too, so we'll see how that plays out over there for Philly.
Another one that was interesting too was the Arkansas kid. went to Cleveland. Just a sneaky thing to keep your eye on. I know Cleveland's they got Watson and Shador and Dylan Gabriel and so they got like a million quarterbacks there. I get it, but like just a sneaky one to like don't discount for forever. Like that could happen there. All right. So last but not least on the draft, beyond our top 12, the biggest surprises, just some teams whose drafts that I know I liked, and Jodye on maybe some others that you want to chime in with. But to me, number one, I really liked the Cowboys draft. They got Downs. I told you I really love that pick. I truly think if you look at the Cowboys last year, offensively extremely productive, obviously with when they stay healthy and with the talent at quarterback and receiver.
Yeah.
The offensive line was good enough. Those running backs that they kind of took some swings on were productive. Like that offense was sick. They lost a lot of games because of their defense last year. Well, they just went and said, hey, we're going to bolster the defense in our first few picks, right? Obviously, they lost Micah Parsons. They traded Micah Parsons. I shouldn't say lost. They traded him. They chose to do that last year.
Yeah.
And so that made their defense significantly worse. Well, they said, okay, how can we help fix some of this? We're going to draft a guy who I think is one of the better safeties to come out in a few years, like since Kyle Hamilton and Caleb Downs. Hey, we're going to go draft 2 edge rushers that are going to help give us more pass rush production, and Lawrence and Barham out of good programs in Mizzou and Michigan. And I just thought that overall they addressed some of the bigger areas and concerns to give themselves a better chance to win more games this year. Obviously, they changed defensive coordinators as well. I like the guy that they hired, I believe, from Philly, Parker. I think he's going to do a good job with their defense. He's going to bring a Fangio style, and then giving him Caleb Downs as that movable chess piece. I really like what the Cowboys did in the draft. Number 2, I like the Ravens. The Ravens, had an interesting offseason, right? They fire Harbaugh. They hire Jesse Minter. Yeah. They trade for Max Crosby. But wait, they didn't. And then they signed Trey Hendrickson instead, all that. But in the draft, I thought they nailed it. They drafted the best guard available at 14. They also took Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt, 2 college receivers that were very productive from USC and Indiana that I liked, and they give those Lamar some more weapons. And they took 2 bites at the apple there. I like that because, let's face it, outside of Zay Flowers, their receivers have not been uber productive, right? Rashad Bateman is a guy that I've always kind of liked, but he just doesn't quite stay healthy, and maybe doesn't give you as much production as you would like to see. And so giving him some more weapons, some more bites at the apple. And then they had a late round draft pick, a D tackle that not many people are going to pay attention to or care about. But I know because I'm a Michigan fan and watched him a ton in college. Rayshon Benny, really good player. And they got him in the 6th round. And I kind of like that too. So I really like the Ravens draft. I like the Ravens offseason in general, to be honest. But I really like the draft. The Jets. Of course, when you get 3 first-round picks, you're going to be kind of a team that people like. Everyone's going to be like, oh, my gosh, everyone's going to love the draft because you had 3 first-round picks. That's usually what happens anyway. But on a real note, I really did like some of the stuff they did. David Bailey, probably my least of their favorite of their picks, just because, like I said, there were some other pass rushers there that I liked a little better. But I do think he's going to be a productive player. I don't think it's like they drafted a bust at 2. I think he's going to be really good. Kenyon Sadiq, best tight end in the draft. A little bit of a developmental player, but also you pair him with, the guy they drafted last year at tight end, and now you have kind of maybe as the NFL evolves again and we see more of this people going to the Rams 12, 13 stuff.
Who's that?
Yes. Now you have Mason Taylor and Kenyon Sadiq on the field at the same time who are going to be great receiving threats, and Sadiq is a good blocker. So, there's something there. You draft, Elijah Cooper or Omar Cooper Jr. I keep getting Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper Jr. mixed up. They're 2 receivers from Indiana. They're both good. I like them both. But Omar Cooper Jr., receiver, to pair with Garrett Wilson. I like that a lot. And then a guy who's small, but I just love the dog in him is D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. It's like they made a point to draft some Indiana kids here, by the way, which I think is smart because Indiana was a good football team for a reason. But
Yeah.
D'Angelo Pons,
they won it
I
all.
just really – he was the guy I was kind of hoping the Rams might get, because he's smaller and I figured he would get to round 2, which he did. But he's extremely talented and he's a dog. He's a pit bull. I like him a lot. So those are 4 players that I like. So even though it's 3 first-round picks and it's kind of hard to mess that up, and it's like, yeah, of course they nailed the draft at 3 first-round picks. I like all 4 of their first picks. So they had 4 like good players in my mind. And then last but not least, I like the Chiefs draft, man. Mansoor Delane, we both love that fit there. Peter Woods later in the first round. Mason Thomas is a kid I freaking love from Oklahoma as just a relentless pass rusher. Maybe not as talented as some of the top guys, but he's going to go hard. And then Garrett Nussmeier in the 6th round. He was like my 4th favorite quarterback in the draft, and they got him in the 6th round.
This dude's name is literally R. Mason.
Yes, the letter R, Mason
That's crazy.
Thomas.
I thought it was short for something else that was too difficult to say, but he's right here.
I don't really know the story on that, but R. Mason Thomas is good. I'll tell you that. He wrecked a couple plays in the game Oklahoma played against Michigan this year, so I can tell you that. And just in some of the other games I watched of Oklahoma, he was all over the field. So I really liked that Chiefs draft. It's another one I liked. Joe, is there anybody else I kind of left out that you felt like had a good 3 days at the NFL draft this year?
I think my ultimate pick would have been the Chiefs. I think them getting Delane so high was crazy. Like as soon as I heard that pick come across, I was like, "That's insane." I was like, these was literally just fixed their corner that they just got rid of.
Yeah. They just drafted his clone.
I was there like, "Oh, here we go again. Chiefs are gonna do something crazy."
Masterful by them. So, it's funny because that's a great transition into kind of our last segment today. And that is, we just want to, for some of you out there, and Jodye, as we do this, it'd be very helpful to know what every team that we talk about, what their over-under is right now.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
But we're going to talk about some teams with some profiles this year that as you're getting ready for 2026 and you're thinking about what predictions you might make, what maybe some over-unders you want to bet or not bet, or who you think could win some divisions, who you think could make the playoffs. We wanted to take a look at teams that we think could improve. They have the profile to improve by 4+ wins from last year or get worse by 4+ wins from last year, right? 4+ losses, basically, more than they had the year before. Every year, we know the NFL is kind of about risers and fallers. We love the team that takes the big leap and goes from like mediocre to below middle of the pack to like all of a sudden they're winning their division, they're winning playoff games, right? Last year, that was the Patriots. The year before that, that was the Commanders. And those are 2 teams that on this podcast, both years, both off seasons, we projected as being teams that would be much better than they were the year before. We didn't necessarily project that the Commanders would make the NFC title game or that the Patriots would make the Super Bowl, but we did project both those teams to be significantly better than they were the year before. And so we look at teams that have similar profile that could do that this year, as well as the inverse, the teams that, maybe are going to take a step back, right? So because I said we love their draft, we're going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, they went 6-11 in 2025. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes getting hurt later in the season hurt them. They still weren't as good as they should have been maybe before that. Age, the multiple Super Bowl runs in a row playing a factor. Maybe a little bit of coaching staff getting stale, right? And so Matt Nagy's gone. Eric Bieniemy is in as the OC again. They kind of maybe go back to some of their roots. Mahomes is looking like he's going to be on track to play very early in the season, if not week 1, which no one expected. And so if we're saying they're a team that can improve by 4+ wins, that means they have to go from 6-11 to at least 10-7. Jodye, what's their over-under for 26?
This is where Vegas is spot on. They're at 10.5.
So Vegas is telling you they also think this is a team that can improve by 4+ wins. Because even if you thought they were going to improve by 4, you could still bet the under there and be right. You could get right at 10 and be right. So some other major improvements this offseason that leads me to believe they could take that step and get to at least 10 wins, right? Beyond Mahomes being healthy and Bieniemy being back as the OC, Mansoor Delane in the draft. We talked about that ad nauseum. Some guys they added in the offseason and free agency. Kenneth Walker at running back. I think that could be big for them to kind of have a better running game. Alohi Gilman on defense. Tyquan Thornton as another receiver that, Mahomes can throw to deep vertical shot ball.
They brought him back, yeah? Is that what that means?
Yeah. Kader Kohu, another defensive back in free agency. So I know they lost, obviously, Delane or McDuffie and Watson, but I think they addressed some of the secondary issues or changes in the draft and in free agency where I feel pretty good. If you look at their schedule, for every team in this category, I just kind of went with like, okay, you think they can win 4 more games. They have to win at least 10. Where are the 10 wins, right? You got to look at the schedule too, because just because you think a team is better, if the schedule is really hard, maybe they don't quite win 4 more games because it's hard to approve by 4 wins, right? That's not an easy task. So here are where I think their 10 wins are, if they're going to, and that's if they only win 10, right? But at home versus the Broncos, I know the Broncos are still going to be very good, but we're going to give KC a win at home early in the season. At the Colts, I think they can win that game. At the Dolphins, home versus the Jets, I think is a win. At the Falcons, home versus the Cardinals. At the Bengals, I think the Patriots could take a step back. Spoiler alert. So home versus the Patriots, home versus the 49ers, and home versus the Raiders. If they just win those games, and do any of those sound like impossible games for them to win, Joe?
By the looks of it, maybe the Bengals, but that's a maybe. Actually, I think the real answer is probably the Patriots.
But, the Patriots of all those games, maybe home versus the Broncos early in the season. We like the Broncos, quite a bit. They were in the AFC title game last year.
About Bo Nix's injury recovery. That's my only thing holding me back for the Broncos.
And it's early, but by the same token, it's early for the Chiefs too with Mahomes. So, there's kind of a toss up there. But again, and that's just like I said, I picked out kind of like the 10 that I feel like were closest to. Nothing's a guarantee in the NFL, but the 10 wins that I felt like these are the 10 that I could see happening.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and that's again, if they were only winning 10, I think they could win even more. So, first team that we think can improve by 4+ wins, the Kansas City Chiefs. Vegas agrees with us. Number 2, Tennessee Titans. All right, the Titans went 3-14 last year. So, of all the teams on this list who could most improve or sort of easiest improve, because the Titans could go from 3-14 to 7-10. And that's improving by 4+ wins. 7-10 seems very doable for this team, in my opinion. They were second to last in total offense last year. Now, obviously, they brought in Robert Saleh to be the head coach, who I like as a head coach. I thought he did a good job in New York. I thought he was plagued by the quarterback problem, right? But he got his defenses to play hard, and he went back to San Francisco.
The one thing we know about him is his defense always go crazy.
And he went back to San Francisco this year, and they were so beat up, and it didn't matter. He still got his defenses to produce. You bring in Brian Daboll to run the offense, and he might not have been a great head coach, but I believe in him as an OC. I thought he did some really good things with Josh Allen in Buffalo. You got Cam Ward going into year 2. You bring in Carnell Tate and Anthony Hill Jr. in the draft from Texas, linebacker from Texas, who I like a lot. You sign Wan'Dale Robinson, who's familiar with Brian Daboll from New York. Yeah. You trade for Jermaine Johnson, the pass rusher from the Jets, who, again, familiar with Robert Saleh. You sign Alontae Taylor as a corner to help bolster the secondary. And so they made some additions with a lot of guys who are familiar with Daboll and Saleh. I still like what they have up front. Obviously, they got that monster in the middle. And I like Tony Pollard in the backfield. I like some of the weapons the Titans brought in. Maybe nothing splashy outside of Carnell Tate, but I think enough to get the job done where they're not going to be second to last in total offense. Yeah. So schedule-wise, hey, just got to find 7 wins. What are the 7 wins? Okay, let's say home versus the Jets. I said I think they're better than the Colts, especially with Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles. So I gave them 2 wins against the Colts this year. Home versus the Browns, at the Bengals, at the Raiders, and home versus the Steelers. All right, so now they maybe have kind of one of the, because they got the AFC North, I think it's tough, but I did give them 3 wins there. Their division is good, right? The Jags and the Texans, I didn't give them any wins against those guys, but I gave them, like I said, the 2 wins against the Colts. So I don't think these 7 are by any means a gimme, but I think they can win 7 games, and I think they'll be a little bit better than people expect. So there's maybe some upsets in there. So I like them to improve by 4 wins. What was their over/under in Vegas, Jody?
I think it seems like we got a trend here. They're at 6.5, so they're
Vegas
sitting
agrees.
Right at,
Vegas agrees. Now you'd have to bet the over to get all 4 wins here, but right on it. Okay. Number 2, or I guess number 3, sorry, in this category. We actually have 5 teams that we like for this. So we're going to go number 3 here. Baltimore Ravens, right? Their 2025 record was 8-9. They sustained a ton of injuries on defense. Harbaugh, I think, is an excellent coach, but it did seem like, man, he's been there for a really, really long time, so maybe it was time. So they bring in Jesse Minter, who I think is an excellent defensive coach and will evolve their defense tremendously. They bring in Declan Doyle to run the offense from Chicago, who is a bit of an unknown, and we'll see. Is he as good as their previous OC Todd Monken in terms of getting the production out of Lamar Jackson? You think Lamar healthy, playing for a new contract? I like that. Massive defensive improvement, I think, with Jesse Minter at the helm. The draft I liked, right? The guard out of Penn State. I talked about Jacoby Lane, Elijah Surratt in the draft. And then they signed Trey Hendrickson. They signed, bring back Jodye Awuzie in free agency. I like some of the moves they made. I would probably like it better if Max Crosby was there.
I was about to say.
But I still like it, right? I still like it. So then you look at the schedule. You're like, okay, at the Colts, I think that's a win. Home versus the Saints, that's a win. Home versus the Titans, I'm giving them that one. At the Falcons, I'm giving them that one. The Browns, twice. I think they win both those games. The home game versus the Bills, or the Bengals, I'll give them that. Home versus the Jags, I'll give them that. Home versus the Chargers, giving them that one. At the Panthers, I'm giving them that one. Home versus the Bucks, I'm giving them that one. And home versus the Steelers, giving them that one. Now, this one was tougher. You had to find 12 wins in that schedule to go from 8 wins to 12, for the 4-game improvement. So there's a couple toss-ups in there. I think the hardest one's probably, I would say, the home game versus the Chargers, and then maybe the home game versus the Jags. But I like both of them because, again, they're both at home. So I gave them both of those.
That's a key factor. The line over
what's
here
Vegas
was
got them at?
11.5. So same thing.
Money. We're on the money,
they're,
Jody.
They're in your head right now, bro. They say, 4 wins. Yeah, you're right. We see that too.
And I promise you, in doing this, did not look at the Vegas over/under numbers. Didn't look at that to help me decide. And this is just, I'm finding out right now live like you guys are from Jody. So, okay, the 4th team, and everyone's kind of darling. I almost didn't put them on this list because they're too much out there. Yes. But it was hard to ignore them when their record last year was 4-13. That's the New York Football Giants. Last year, they're really young, a ton of injuries, and they had a coaching change mid-season. That all contributes to 4-13, right? When you ask yourself, how does a team get to 4-13? So here are some changes, notable changes, right? They bring in Harbaugh, a respected NFL football coach who will just make the franchise maybe not so erratic. Jackson Dart in year 2. You can't underestimate the fact that having Scoutaboo and Neighbors healthy, hopefully for the full season, what that will do for them and their offense. They added Arvell Reese, and who some people had as the best prospect in the draft. They added the tackle out of Miami in the draft, right, with their 2 first-round picks.
Is that guy's name Maui Noah? Is that here?
Maui Goa? Yeah.
I think they pronounce it Maui Noah.
Okay. All right. Francis Maui Noah? Yeah, from Miami, who a lot of people liked as the best tackle prospect in the draft. So they've arguably got the best pass rusher and the best tackle. Now, this is, debatable. Both of them are high talents, but I also think the floor could be low, right? It's like kind of the boom or bust in both cases. And if they both boom, it's a great draft. In free agency, they had Isaiah Likely. They had Darnell Mooney. They had Tremaine Edmonds at linebacker. They had Gavin Newsom, or not Gavin. That is the California governor. Greg Newsom, the Browns cornerback, and DJ Reader at defensive tackle. They had all of those guys in free agency to like really beef up some of the talent that they have and some of the depth. I like all of that. So the changes that they made beyond just getting healthy, the changes they made in staff and in talent and depth overall, I like. And then the schedule, right? We got to go find 7 wins or 8 wins. I'm sorry, 8 wins. They got to go 8-9 for this to be right. Let's see. What are the 8 wins? All right. I gave them home versus the Titans, home versus the Cardinals, home versus the Saints, home versus the Commanders, home versus the Jags, at the Colts, home versus the Niners, and home versus the Browns. Those are their 8 wins I gave them. Joe, which one of those you don't like?
I want to say the Jags.
The Jags and the Niners ones are the two stretches. But again, both at home, right? We know upsets happen every season. I'm not telling you the Giants are going to be in the NFC title game, right? I'm just telling you they're going 8-9.
Yeah, I did have a nice, maybe not nice, maybe tinfoil hat moment right here with the Niners going to the New York Giants stadium, and I don't want to put it out there, but you guys could pick up what I'm putting down.
The injuries on that turf?
I didn't say it.
Oh, no. No. But it's got to be better than playing at Levi's because there's not a cell station right there, cell tower.
Yeah. But they're at an even state when they practice right there and then they play there. Nothing changes.
Okay.
I think it's when they leave it gets worse.
Where are the Giants at on over under there?
They're at 7.5. The same thing. We got the thing.
Money again.
Seems like the 3.5 is Vegas's money spot.
We are right on it. All right. So of course, what we're saying is of all of these right now, the one that maybe is the best value, I guess, would be maybe the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But
because you could take
keep going,
and you're with this,
and you still get the 4+ improvement, possibly. Yeah. Okay, the Commanders, the last team that we have on this list. Now, what's funny about the Commanders is they have been a legit roller coaster since Dan Quinn took over, right? In year one, they get
skyrocket, and then they hit the backside of the Goliath.
And maybe it was a little early, right? And there was going to be regression, but it was like year one, everything goes right. All the vets they signed stay healthy and are productive. Jaden Daniels is the truth. Dan Quinn does wonders with that defense. They ride a rocket ship to the NFC title game, and probably, like we said, like we sort of had some luck, some schedule help and injury luck and all the things, get to this NFC title game and then get their head kicked in by the Eagles. Okay, fine, right? Now, last year they might have been a team that we were like, they're going to come back down to earth a little bit, but you felt like there's still so much to build on. We like a lot of what they're doing. Okay, well, then they go 5-12. The tons of injuries. They're too old. They couldn't sustain anything that they did from the year before. So you see some changes. David Blau is now the new OC. Could be good, could be bad. We don't know, right? We don't know much about him. We know he's been Jaden Daniels' QB coach the last couple of years, so there's some positives there in terms of understanding. They had Sonny Styles, another guy I liked in the draft, Katron Allen, 6th-round pick, running back from Penn State, like him. They had those guys in the draft. In free agency and in trades, they had Adofe Owe, Leon Chenal, Clavon Chason, Rashad White, Akella Witherspoon, some guys that are veteran, but maybe not as old, and so they got a little bit younger than what they had been in free agency. They shored up the defensive coordinator position, and so I do think some of the changes in coordinators, some of the changes in personnel, and then really Jaden Daniels being healthy for the whole season, that's the big thing, right? As far as the schedule goes, it's like, okay, so they won 5 games last year. We got to find 9 games, 9 wins. Can we find 9 wins here? Here we go. I have some big ones here. There's going to be some that you're going to question. First and foremost, I got them winning at home versus the Seahawks. I'm just waiting because I know Jodye wants to say something.
I mean, it's a tough one, but if that's actually week 1 based off this list, week 1 is always a telling
It's
point.
not week 1. I think it's like week 2 or week 3. It's just the first game on their schedule that I picked out as like I think that could be a win. Versus the Colts, versus the Giants, versus the Eagles. Kind of a tough one, but at home. Versus the Bengals.
Twice. That's fine.
At the Cardinals, versus the Falcons, at the Vikings, and versus the Cowboys. So I have them kind of splitting with everyone in the division. That's 3 wins. And then their other 6 wins, Seahawks, Colts, Bengals, Falcons, all Cowboys at home, and then 1 on the road at the Vikings. So, 9 wins. What's Vegas have them at?
This one, if they do improve by 4, this is the first one where it's like we have some good proof here. This one's at 7.5. So like
Ooh.
we got them.
First one where Vegas isn't yeah.
They don't know.
So but with all of these, we've been either within a half game or 1.5 games. And on the, Vegas is 1.5 games ahead of us side. That's the Chiefs. Vegas is 1.5 games below us. That's the Commanders. So that seems to be, and the in between is where the Giants, the Ravens, and the Titans. Vegas just seems to be right in alignment with us essentially. So I think we got 5 good candidates there. I think all 5 of those teams could improve by 4+ wins this year. Now, the flip side, and these are teams whose fans don't want to see them on this list because we're saying, hey man, they're going to lose 4 more games than they lost last year. And I'll tell you, this list is harder to make because it's really hard. Like teams that you in your mind are good, you don't just see suddenly being not good, right? But it happens every year. And truthfully, there's going to be a team that ends up on this list simply because you can't predict injuries. Would anyone last year have said the Chiefs were going to go 6-11? No. They might have said I think they're going to be a couple games worse, but no one would have been like, 6-11 because you can't predict Patrick Mahomes tearing his ACL in week 13 or whatever, right? So there's going to be a team on this list that no one can predict because we just don't know what injuries are going to happen. But here are the 3 teams who I think are most likely to end up on this list and regress by 4 games. First and foremost, this is kind of a popular pick. Sorry, Patriots fans. It's been a rough offseason for you. The New England Patriots. They're 14-3 last year, so it's easier to kind of project this because all you're saying is they got to go 10-7 to make this list, right? And so 10-7 is not like they're awful. It's just that they're a little bit worse, right? So 14-3, they had an unbelievable year. They had a 6 schedule, which made their lives a lot easier. Year 2 May, right? Changes this offseason, though, that have me maybe less optimistic on their outlook. Number 1, all the Vrabel Rossini stuff. Don't even really want to talk about it. It's just weird. And then Vrabel clearly, there's a lot of distraction going on, is what we're saying. Number 2, they lost Stephon Diggs, who was their number 1 receiver. They lost Garrett Bradbury, who was their center, for an offensive line that was already kind of bad. Not great. Their O-line, I don't think improved enough for me to feel comfortable for Drake May. And you got to keep that guy healthy. He ended the season pretty beat up last year. And if that's a sign of things to come this year, that could be very bad. And then they just have a much harder schedule, much harder. Because now they're playing a first place schedule versus a last place schedule. So it's just different. And saying that, let's look at their schedule. Week 1, they got to go to Seattle. I'm giving them a loss there. Week, I think it's 3 or 4, they go to the Jaguars, giving them a loss there. They go to the Bills, giving them a loss there. They go to the Bears, giving them a loss there. Home versus the Packers, giving them a loss there. Home versus the Lions, that's a loss. At the Chargers, that's a loss. At the Chiefs, that's a loss. All right, so just right there, that's 7 losses. Are any of those games like games where you're like, no way they're losing that game? Because I don't see it. I think all those games are very easily losable.
They're called. I have the scheduled if you wanted me. You said the Seahawks was week 1. That's on the road for them.
Yep, that's a loss.
Let's see. What else do you have on here?
At the Jags, thought was a loss.
That one's week 3.
At the
Bills
Bills
is right after week 4.
At the Bears.
6. So that's week 7 on a Thursday.
See, that's also tough. The home versus the Packers.
7, 8, 9. Week 9 in Green Bay.
Home versus the Lions.
That's not home. That's actually, you got to travel to Germany. Technically home.
Yeah, even more so. Even more so.
Yeah.
At the Chargers and at the Chiefs.
That's the next week on the road and the Chargers. And then you said the Chiefs. That's 2 weeks after on a Monday night in Kansas City.
It's a brutal schedule, dude. I'm telling you, 10-7 is very I think they would be, given the schedule, given the offseason, given all of it. I think you, as a Patriots fan, you would have to be pretty happy with, hey, we went 10-7, we made the playoffs again. Truly. What does Vegas have their over under at?
Theirs is at.
I'll bet it's 9.5.
And you'd be correct.
Knew it. Dude, Vegas is in lockstep with us. This is awesome. All right. So Vegas agrees. 4-game decreases. It's right there. It's on the table.
A note on here. So I'm doing it through Fox Sports. I checked a couple different websites to make sure it was the right numbers. And they have a line saying that New England now has the 6th toughest schedule entering this season, which is why they got the projected drop from Vegas.
Oof.
Kind of what we just said.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've got, like I said, the Pats. Even if you say the great thing is you can still, if they're at 9.5, you can still bet the over while also being they're gonna lose 4 more games. Like they could go 10-7 and you still win if you bet the over. So the Steelers are another team. This is probably the one I feel most conflicted on. Because 10-7 means they got to go to 6-11. I don't know if they're going to be. I don't know if they're going to be that bad. But I just, I got a lot of respect for Mike Tomlin. Their defense was unbelievable last year. They won some really weird games last year. They had a great start to the season, not a great finish. They looked awful in the playoffs. So the biggest change, truthfully, is Mike Tomlin being gone and Mike McCarthy being in, swapping the mics. And I think they got the worst of the swap there. I do like Michael Pittman that they added at receiver. There's some good things they did personnel-wise that I actually do like. I'm just worried, Rodgers, he's already said it's his last year. It's the retirement tour. Him and Mike McCarthy didn't exactly end on great terms in Green Bay.
Yeah, I never thought of that till right now, that they're bringing in his old coach.
And obviously he must be good with it if he decided to come back. So it's not like that's a huge story.
Yeah.
I just, they don't have a real backup quarterback if he gets hurt. Not someone that I believe in right now. I mean, it's Drew Aller or the kid they drafted last year out of Ohio State, Mason Rudolph, or the kid they drafted last year out of Ohio State. One of those three is your quarterback if Rodgers is not playing, and that's just not good. The schedule is pretty tough too. So here you go. I'll read it to you. And these are the 11 losses that I think if I'm gonna be right on this and they go 6-11, here are the 11 losses. At the Patriots.
That one's week 2.
At the Browns.
4.
Versus the Colts.
That's week 5.
At the Buccaneers.
Week 6.
At the Bengals.
7, 8. Week 9. Well, that one's on the road.
At the Eagles.
Week 10.
Home versus the Broncos.
Week 11.
Home versus the Texans.
12.
That's a brutal stretch, by the way, where they go on a 3-game losing streak in my mind. At the Jaguars.
Jaguars is the next week. Still continuing.
So 4-game brutal stretch of losses, I think. At the Titans.
Their bye is also before that Bengals game in this stretch.
Okay.
He said
at the Titans, which I earlier in the pod when I said the Titans were going to improve, I gave the Titans this win, so I got to give the Steelers this loss.
This one's the second to last week of the season.
And then at the Ravens to finish the year.
There you go. Close out.
It's not. I mean, that schedule's tough. There's there's only a couple games in there that you're like, oh, they won't lose that one. Like maybe at the Browns, if you're saying they're going to sweep the Browns. They didn't sweep the Browns last year, though. They were a playoff team last year. And the Browns were awful. And I think the Browns are going to be a little bit better. So I don't think they're sweeping the Browns. Like they're not, they're at best they're splitting with the Bengals and Ravens, I think, right? And I even gave them that split. I gave them a split with everyone in the division. But like some of at the Eagles, home versus the Broncos, home versus the Texans, at the Jags, that is a brutal 4-game stretch, dude. I think they're losing all 4 of those. So that right there, I think, the only other game on this list that you're like, oh, really? Are they going to lose at the Titans? I'm giving them that loss because, again, I gave the Titans that win in their improvement. So Steelers fans, don't come for me. I'm a little bit – I don't know if I actually believe they're going to be 6-11. Might be more like 8-9, 9-8, something like that. But I do think they're going to not be as good as they were last year because of Tomlin being out the door. I just think he's that good. So
the real question is how much do you weigh that 8-9 or 9-8?
Well, and I really think it would be. There's something about it that I think there's some kind of Mike Tomlin voodoo. Well, this will be the year they finally go under 500 because he's gone.
8-9.
It's like I just feel like it's going to happen. That's why I'm like 6-11 is not that. It's not that crazy. So
yeah. So
all right, the last team.
You're taking the under at 8.5.
Where are they at? Where are they at? 8.5. Okay. Yeah. See, so I'm a little. The Vegas thinks a little higher of them than I do.
All right, we're back.
Good.
Yeah, more technical difficulties for those wondering. And my laptop. Actually, no, it was both my regular computer. It disconnected Discord earlier. Now my whole thing just rebooted itself. Crazy times out here, but we're back.
We're back though. So, all right. So, what we were getting into right as things crash, our last team here that we think could decrease by 4 wins going into 2026 is a team that'll be somewhat controversial. I think their fans will come for me here. But the Seattle Seahawks, they went 14-3 last year. All right. So all we're saying is they're going 10-7. Much like the Patriots, it'd be 10-7, be a playoff team, and still have regressed by 4 wins, right? Jodye said earlier, like both Super Bowl teams, bro. Yes, both Super Bowl teams. It happens a lot, right? The length of the season catches up to you. It's really hard to win that many games multiple years in a row. And like I said, they only have to be 10-7 to have still fallen by 4 games. The big things that they had going for them last year, they had Sam Darnold had his best year ever, right? Especially in the playoffs. Clint Kubiak was arguably the best offensive coordinator in the league last year. Kenneth Walker, especially down the stretch of the season, and then especially after Zach Charbonnet got hurt, was unstoppable. He was awesome. He was the Super Bowl MVP for crying out loud. And of those things, Kubiak's gone. Walker's gone, right? And maybe,
crazy,
just maybe, as good as Sam Darnold is, maybe those two were a big reason why he was so good. And so maybe we see a little bit of regression from Sam Darnold, right? It's going to be his 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years. It's going to be the Seahawks' 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years since they hired Mike McDonald, right? And so they go from Clint Kubiak to Brian Fleury, who was an assistant last year on staff. The great unknown there. We have no idea how that'll look, if it'll be good, if it'll keep continuity. We'll see. They lose Kenneth Walker, as we mentioned, to the Chiefs. They lose Tariq Woolen. They lose Kobe Bryant, right? Multiple guys in that secondary that were very good. Now, you would argue that those were probably the 2 worst players of that, secondary with Emenwari and Witherspoon and Love, and that kind of stuff. But you still it's guys you got to replace, right? That were part of a very good secondary. So I still think their defense will be elite. I think that they may take some step back on offense, truthfully. Cooper Kupp's a year older. JSN can't be like the only guy producing at receiver for them. So I do think there's a natural regression that will happen on offense for them. If we look at the schedule, we got to find 7 losses, right? So here are the 7 losses I had for them. I already talked about in Washington's improvement tier here at the Commanders. I'm giving the Seahawks a loss for that, right?
Week 3.
Home versus the Chargers.
Week 4.
At the Broncos.
Week 6. That's a Thursday night.
Home versus the Bears.
Week 8, Monday night.
At the 49ers.
Niners. Ooh, coming off a bye, week 12.
At the Eagles.
Eagles, week 15.
And at the Rams.
Christmas game, Thursday night.
So, and here's the deal, Seahawks fans. I'm not saying the Rams and the Niners swept you. You split with both of them. That's realistic. I'm even giving you the sweep of the Cardinals in division. I'm even giving you 4-2 in the division. 10-7 is not crazy for this team. Even coming off a Super Bowl 14-3 year. So I've got them as that third team that could regress by four wins. What does Vegas have their over under? I'm going to guess 10.5.
You'll be spot on with that right there.
Yeah. I figure Vegas is a little bit higher than we are here. But, this one I told you, tougher sell here. Much like the Patriots. I think they had the Patriots at 9.5. They had them on that, which honestly makes sense. I think the Patriots are a greater candidate for this than the Seahawks. But, so we'll see how the season plays out. But here you go. You have 5 teams that we think could be markedly improved and 3 teams that we think could be worse from last year. And then we got a bunch of teams, 24 other teams all in between. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Going into the rest of the offseason, we're awaiting what happens with A.J. Brown. We talked about that, hinted at that earlier, see where he might go.
Possibly tomorrow.
We await maybe does anything change with Max Crosby? It seems like he's going to stay put in Vegas, even though the trade got rescinded and all that.
Yeah.
Does anything happen big in Pittsburgh, right? Do they trade like someone like TJ Watt or, and the last thing is like quarterbacks. What happens what quarterback gets hurt in camp? What big name receiver gets hurt in camp? Or we see more receiver or quarterback trades. Those are always kind of the big ones, especially in training camp. And we're getting closer. We're about 2 months away from training camp now, a month and a half, 6 weeks. And we're going to start getting that stuff. So, lot more to talk about still. I think we'll move forward this summer with some divisional previews as we go through the summer. But for now, we hit all the big stuff. Joe, any of these, which one did you disagree with the most, risers and fallers?
Ooh, disagreement, I would say probably, I guess the Commanders. I don't know.
I think the Commanders as a riser and the Steelers maybe as a faller are the two that I had the least amount of confidence in, is what I'll say.
I think the Steelers makes very much sense to me, to be honest. I'm in agreement. I don't know how Mike Tomlin did it, but he did it year after year. New guy with Mike McCarthy coming in. No real, other than Aaron Rodgers, like what quarterback do you trust there? I don't know.
Do you even trust Aaron Rodgers at this point?
Yeah, no, exactly.
To stay healthy,
like what weapons?
Season.
Like
there's a lot there. So, we'll keep on keeping on all summer. We're glad to be back. Appreciate you listening. And let us know what you think. How far off are we on some of these risers and fallers? Which of your teams got left out that we should have talked about as a riser? I assume no one's going to say my team should be a faller. Keep on checking in with us all summer long, because we're going to be diving all of these teams and what they're doing and getting ready for the 2026 NFL season. And, man, there's just nothing better than the NFL. So we're going to keep covering it and getting ready for next season because we're juiced. Before we go, Joe, any bangers? I mean, I know we got like 3 albums from Drake, so I'm sure there's something there. Or maybe Kendrick. Or maybe Kendrick's response, little music video that he put out with the little owl getting blown up by TNT. I mean, what do we got? What's going on?
Come on now, I mean, what song do you want from Drake? I mean, you got Shebang.
Dude, give me your favorite one. Which one was the
TFU? Oh, my first one that made sense to me was National Treasure. That one was my first off of the first listen. Like I said, Shebang and Janish STFU. Those came later. My other one I'll first rip was Little Birdie. Little Birdie.
Okay. All right, bro.
The other ones you kind of got to listen to, but those ones are like you could listen to and be like, yeah, I see it. You know what I mean?
Okay. I'm going to have to go listen. I've listened to some, not a lot. Not a huge music guy, but I'm going to have to go listen since you gave me some ones to highlight and check out. You know what I mean? I don't have time to listen to like all whatever 48 tracks or whatever he released, but I'll go check out like
personally,
6 or 7.
I think if you're looking at just you could probably not listen to Habibti, to be honest. That one's people say it's more R&B, but I feel like it's a lot slower than the other two. You know what I mean? Like when you think of typical Drake, I feel like people are looking for like a catchy song. You're not gonna find that one.
They're looking for that radio song. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not gonna find that one on Habibti.
All right. All right, bro. Well, it's good to be back. Way to get back in the saddle with your boy, and I guess we'll see y'all in the next episode the next week. Go Knicks in the NBA Finals. I want to see the French guy win it, and enjoy the summer. Enjoy the summer. It's June 1st tomorrow. We're all on summer vacay, baby. Let's go.
Then though, we got our guy, Ray, taking us out.
Take us out.